Good morning. I want to get on here, do an update for you, just so you guys kind of know where we're at on House Bill 4145. And so this thing was officially signed into law yesterday by the governor, which is a good thing for us. And we'll talk about what that means for you when it comes to magazines, being able to make purchases of magazines. And so let me get my stream set up. So if you guys can see this, please let me know. I'm gonna be putting this in multiple spots today, and so it's just I'm just getting in the flow of things, right? So there's been some time off, and we're just gonna talk about what this means for us, and so I hope you guys can join us. And there was a lot of we were waiting for this thing to be signed into law. It was something that is it was kind of scary because she had the opportunity. She could have vetoed it. It probably would not um been necessarily a good thing for her, because the optics on both sides of this situation are are bad, for them, just because they did get a loss. Okay, they wanted the whole kitchen sink and they settled for really nothing. And what this did is this really gave us some protection. I know there's a comment already in here, and I saw your comments yesterday on my post. And so, can I explain how this is a good thing? Okay, so this is a really good thing for us, and this is the way I want you to kind of understand what this is going to do. So this pushes back the effectiveness date of Measure 114 to January 1st of 2028. And so what that's going to do is basically now it's going to free up our ability to be able to buy magazines through mail, right? So there's certain companies that are not shipping to Oregon just because they know that we have Measure 114 in place. Obviously, we're waiting for the Supreme Court to rule, and so there was companies that would not ship to Oregon because, quote unquote, this thing is in effect, right? That's the way it looks from the outside looking in. Okay, they're not going to do the due diligence to figure out that yes, they could ship to Oregon because of the effective date of March 15th of 2026. That was due to the passage of Senate Bill 243. And so now that she signed this thing into effect, is now we move the effectiveness date to January 1st of 2028. And so now we have some time to breathe, right? So the one thing that we still have to be concerned about, obviously, is the Oregon Supreme Court. They still need to rule. So there's some things that could really not be good there. But if we get the ruling that we need, like we're set, right? So this is where it's easy to get lost in all of the sauce of this stuff, but it's really, really important to see that this is a win for us, right? So this is something we waited for, because it was obviously it was passed. We were waiting for the signature for it to be official. Okay, so it took quite a long time for her to sign this, and so I was kind of holding my breath, hoping she would sign it, because the way it looks, right? So she's going around the state. I don't know if you're watching about what she's doing. I pay attention to it. Everything's a photo op. Everything, she's trying to make it look like she's the people's governor. She's putting on work boots. Picking up trash. She's doing all these things, right? So this was such an unpopular bill, the way it was worded, from the get go with the original House Bill 4145. And the other side, this was unpopular for them. This was not their bill. This is not the bill that they wanted. And they wanted the amendment. They wanted to have the fee reduced. They wanted all of these things. We had the same concerns, which was really weird for us. Like, we've never been in this position before. And so I was waiting I needed to have that signature until I could really rest easy. Obviously, I knew it was going to happen, but my biggest fear was the fact that she would just come to her senses, try to be this moderate, the people's governor, and veto it, and then we're in a deep trouble. And so, fortunately for us, she did sign this into law. So now we have protection. Okay, so what the protection looks like for us is this. So nothing has changed. Okay, so Measure 114 is still enjoined in a Supreme Court. We're waiting for that ruling to come out, and so that's really great news to us. It could be September or November before we hear, okay, our true fate. And I'm going to play hypotheticals here. Okay, so hypothetically, if that decision that comes from the Oregon State Supreme Court does not go in our favor, Measure 114 does not automatically go into effect. Okay, so that's where people that were concerned about the like saying, is this good? How is this good news? Like, this is the good news for us. So, like, if the ruling doesn't go in our favor, and which I'm hoping it does, this thing does not slam into effect. So what this does is, since she signed it into law yesterday, it basically moves the effective date out to January 1st of 2028. So that's where we have to see that this is the good news for us, right? This is that moves that goal line way down a couple of years out of the way, gives us enough time in the long session to figure out, how we can make it workable. Obviously, we do not want to compromise. We want this thing to go away. But let's say we get, and this is another hypothetical for you, because I speak in hypotheticals because I want to paint a picture of like worst case scenarios plus best case scenarios. Okay. So, worst case scenario in this hypothetical is, let's say the Oregon Supreme Court doesn't rule in our favor. We lose. They say it's constitutional, yada, yada, yada. It would take 30 days after that ruling for Measure 114 to go into effect, right? So this thing could slam into effect. They wouldn't have any of the processes in place. They wouldn't have the background check process ready. They wouldn't have the training ready. Every gun sale in the state of Oregon would come to a halt on day one. Okay. So that is the worst case scenario. Okay. So the fact that we were able to move that effective date from March 15th of 2026, because if that thing did slam into effect and we did get the ruling that we didn't want, it would automatically go into effect within those 30 days, right? So the good thing that we have going for us now is the fact that that effective date was moved out to January 1st of 2028. So let's say we don't get the ruling that we need, they can't make it go into effect before January 1st of 2028. So that is where people don't see, and people maybe don't understand how this process works. So that's why I'm here to educate, make sure people know. And so that's where I'm coming to kind of make sure people understand kind of where we're at. And it's just know that this is the way this is going to work. And so the caveat I will add to this conversation is we have a long session. If we get the ruling that we don't want, and this is all hypotheticals from the Oregon State Supreme Court, in the long session, they could try to move up that effective date from January 1st of 2028 to like the end of the long session, which would be at the end of June 30th. Okay. So that is something to watch very closely in that next long session. And that's where I am. We're putting everything together. We're working right now on your behalf, standing things up, getting things in place to help protect us as Oregon gun owners. And so, we want to have a plan. We want to be on the offensive here. There's some legislation that we're working on currently right now that would, go on the attack. And so that's kind of where we're at is this was a huge victory for us. And that's where I need people to see how truly big that this was. Okay. So let's paint the picture how big this was. Okay. You had a Senate Democrat that flipped on her own party in the public hearing. Okay. Or excuse me, in the work session, that voted no. Okay. So that does not happen. Okay. That has never happened, especially when it comes to a gun bill in the Oregon State Legislature. Okay. So that was huge for us. Okay. Obviously it got reversed because of their shenanigans. We made them pay. Okay. Our email campaigns, the messaging campaigns that we did on, on behalf of everybody were really brilliant, and they worked very, very effectively. The media campaigns worked very effectively. It was a full-on assault on them, and they did not know how to deal with the pressure. Okay. They had to cave, they had to capitulate, they had to surrender to the Senate Republicans. Okay. And the House Republicans. Okay. We were fighting from a minority position in the Oregon legislature, and it was people like you and I that did the work, sent the emails, submitted testimony, testified either in person or online. Those are the people that made the difference. Okay. The people that sent emails to Senate or House Democrats are the ones that made the difference here. Okay. So believe that the pressure campaign was relentless and it worked just the way we needed to work. We're going to make it so much better in the next long session with the new website. So that's where I'm something, that's where we are, putting everything together. We're going to be more effective and it's going to be more rapid, high speed, and we're going to overwhelm them just like we did this time because they're not used to this. This is something where they have a script, they have a playbook, and once they're on that playbook, they can win. We took that playbook away and we nullified them. We shut down the red shirts to the point where we maybe had at the most maybe 10. Okay, which it was huge for us. And so that's something, we should all be proud of. And so that's where we're not gonna we figured out the blueprint. Okay, we know what's going to work, and we're going to replicate it in the long session and going on into the future. Right, the future of gun rights is happening right now, and you guys are all part of that. So thank you for that. And so that's where I want to give you guys that update is. Let's talk about, I'm going to get to the questions now. So we'll talk to the questions. If you have questions, put them in the chat. We'll talk about them. So this one right here. So is all of measure 114. I thought it was just the permitting requirement. It is all of measure 114. So that means the magazines, magazine capacity. It is all of measure 114. Okay. Not just the permitting scheme. Okay. So this is really, really great for all of us. Everything's been bumped out to January 1st of 2028. And so this is something, we should, celebrate. And so, and this one right here, well, this is where I want you to understand here, even before March 15th. Okay. So technically, okay, this is the way this thing has worked is this thing became law on December 8th of 2022. Okay. Okay. It came into law. It was officially law on the books. Okay. The problem is we first got a temporary relief. Okay, we got a temporary injunction. Okay, which turned into a permanent injunction once we got the ruling out of Harney County. And so, any company on the outside of the state that tries to look at whether they can ship magazines to our state, they're going to look at this is in law. Also, we had Senate Bill 243 that backs that up by saying this is another capacity restriction part effective March 15th of 2026. So it's kind of a double whammy there. And so it's that has prevented some of these companies from shipping guns with the standard capacities to Oregon. So now that we have an effective date of January 1st of 2028, it's like now they can, once it gets updated, now we can educate these companies that yes, you can ship to Oregon because everything has been held up until January 1st of 2028. So this is a really good thing for us. And so yeah, just so you're aware, this is where it's going. And so this one right here, this is a hard pass. So can FRT ship to Oregon again? No, that is still going to be a felony. So be very, very careful with the force reset trigger. They're probably looking for people to make examples of. This is one that I would like to file a lawsuit on among a few others, because I think they violated the way the ATF interpreted the rules, right? Because remember, the ATF can't write law. Okay. Every law has to come from Congress. Okay. So this is a rule. The ATF, misinterpreted the rule. They've already been slapped in other states. We're just so far down the line that we're just going to pass it and hope that we get sued, because that's the way we operate here in Oregon is we're going to do things until we get sued. And so that, as gun owners, as organization going forward, is we're going to change that. We are going to know you're going to be held accountable. There is going to be penalties for you violating our civil rights. So that's something. Yes, this is a great comment, Ty. Thank you. Time is a resource. Yes, time is our friend here. And that's where I want you guys to understand that, okay, and I'll preface it like this, right? And I'll explain it like this. In Oregon, it's been really hard to celebrate a victory, right? We are not used to to a victory. Obviously, we've had Tony Allo. He's done some amazing stuff on our behalf when it comes to Measure 114, but we are so used to losing that when we win, we don't know what to do with our hands, right? And so that's where I'm telling people, like I had a speaking engagement last night at a local range, which was great, had fun. And so that's where I think it's important that you know that this is a victory for us, and we need to make sure that we celebrate because what we want to do is build momentum. Okay. We want to build momentum because that's going to keep us in this fight. That's going to keep us moving forward. And that's where, we have to understand, like, this is the way this game is played. We're going to play this game a little bit differently going forward. And we're going to be a little bit more effective. We're going to go after the red shirts. We're going to shut them down. We are going to sever them from politicians. We are going to isolate them. We're going to put them on a little island, and they're going to just go away. That's what's going to happen. They do not have they don't have the intestinal fortitude that we do as Oregon gun owners. And it comes that we have to, we have to be part of this fight. And that's what I'm advocating for all of us. That's and yeah, that's a good one right there, Patrick. Or we could say here, Patrick had a good one. So they wanted the kitchen sink and they got the garbage disposal. I mean, either that or they got the toilet there, or they maybe got the septic tank. They got something that didn't smell good for them. And this is something that, you know, I was just waiting for the official signature before I could really celebrate, because until we got that signature, there's so many crazy things that could happen. Like the way this whole session went was really crazy. And so I'm like, until I get that signature, I'm not going to party like it's 1999, because bad things could still happen. Luckily for us, she signed it. She did the right thing. And so that's kind of where we're at here. And so I hope you guys see that and trust me here. And I'm not, I don't think that I'm in the wrong. I talk to a lot of bright people, and we're all kind of on the same boat and the same thoughts here. And so that's, something that we need to just celebrate, and so take the good, right? Because they're not always going to be good, right? And so let's talk about what we have going on with ORGOAL. So ORGOAL is still in process. We have a website meeting tomorrow, and so we're finalizing the what we want the site to look like, what to do. We're creating content for the website. It's really exciting to see this, and I think this is something that I look forward to the finished product. I look forward to giving you guys a new weapon. And I also we're developing a training program. Okay. So this training program is, I'm like, once I have everything finalized, I think in August, September, I'm going to spend time on the road going across the state. Once we have the organization set up, we're going to get those chapters involved. And that's kind of where we're at. And once we have everything in place, then we're going to get the counties involved, and then we'll start doing trainings in these counties. And so with these trainings, what's going to be really great about the trainings is we are going to we're going to be training people to do what I do, right? We're going to be giving you guys the tools that I used to actually make the difference that we needed up there, right? So if I can do it, and then what we're going to do is task the people that are in the individual counties, is now you have these tools. Now let's go after those school boards. Now let's go after those county commissioners. Now let's go at those state senators and representatives from your area, your county. You're going to have the tools. And that's how we're going to change Oregon politics. Is we're going to do it. We're going to fight the way we fight in the Oregon legislature this short session. We're going to do that, and we'll replicate it in 36 different counties, right? And so now we're, and that's what's really exciting for me, is to see the plan and the vision and the blueprint come together and have a finished product where now it's time to go. Now it's time to put in the work to make this change. And so this is something where it's never really been done. I mean, or maybe it's been done, it just hasn't been done in this lane, which I'm a gun guy. And so I'm a one, and that's why everybody wants me to run for governor. It's like, no, you don't want me to run for governor because I only want to talk about guns. I don't want to talk about all the other stuff. Like, I'm really good at guns, and that's what I focus on, and I stay within my lane, in my wheelhouse. And so I would be a horrible governor because, like, I would only talk about guns, and so it's just the way it is. We have other great candidates that are running for governor, and so I would defer to them, but I want to help support them with ORGOAL, and that's the goal. And so I think, that's kind of where we're at. This is a great question right here. Um, Absolutely. So once we have everything set up with ORGOAL is going to be doing like report cards on all of these elected officials. We're going to tap into our volunteers at the county level, and that way we can get the dog catcher. We can know what their position is on guns. Our county sheriffs. We can talk about the school boards. All of this stuff is going to be in a database, and they're going to be ranked. And so you're going to know when it's time for you to cast your vote. You're going to know what that person stands when it comes to our two-way rights, and that's going to give us tremendous strength inside of the building, right? And so we will definitely be endorsing the governor. Obviously, I'm probably going to wait till after we get through, because I got to have everything in place. I'm not gonna do it half willy nilly. It's everything's going to be official before I can do the official endorsement for governor. So look for that probably after the primary once we have everything set up. But that's the goal. Is we're going to have everything. We're going to have a searchable database. You're going to be in the members section. You'll be able to know exactly who this person is, what their position is on guns, and you'll be able to vote accordingly. And so that's what's really important. We're gonna rank Democrats as well. I mean, it's not going to be a partisan thing for us. Everybody's going to get the same questions, and so that's kind of where we're at. Ty, I don't know if you're helping or not. No for governor. Okay. No worse than we've already seen in the past few decades. That is true. Probably right. But I'm not big on economics. I'm not big on trade issues. I'm big on guns. That's all I would talk about. So this is a really great question or comment from Hayden. I really appreciate you. Is get involved with your local range, gun communities. Our voice and community is power. Absolutely. Okay. So one thing to think about this, okay, and this is really important, is how you represent gun owners, right? And so that's where it's really important to know is when you're doing, like, once we get the org set up and we start doing all these tabling events and getting out in the community as an organization with grassroots, it's important to know is you're representing your fellow gun owners, right? So it's really important to represent yourself, your gun owners well. Okay. So really important that, okay. Just because there's a lot of people that are going to pay attention to you. And if you come off as somebody that's reasonable, somebody that wants to be welcoming and inviting, people are going to be more receptive to you in the message, and maybe we can get some conversions. Everything's about conversions because we need votes at the end of the day. So this is like really, like, Hayden, 100% great comment, and that's kind of where we're at. And so that's well, yeah, absolutely. And so common use items cannot be banned, and so that's where and having an organization, we're going to have a seat at the table. We're going to be inside the building. We're going to be able to negotiate. We're going to be able to introduce our own legislation. And there's going to be a way, if you guys have an idea, and this is something I'll kind of leave you with this, because I don't want to take too much more of your time. But if there's something that you want to change about Oregon revised statute or Oregon law, let's write it. Like, put pen on paper, put your ideas down and thoughts. And I'll show you how this process works. It's really easy. It doesn't cost you any money. All it's going to cost you is your time in the building. Basically, you're going to make good. Like, we'll walk you through the whole process. And that's part of our training, is how we make bills become laws. And we do that is when we make it. One thing to think about with this stuff, if we start introducing legislation that takes the ability from the other side to do the same. Okay. Is they have to look at it. They only have a certain amount of bandwidth up there. Okay. If we can write legislation, definitely stuff that would be bipartisan, like the Public Safety Act that I'm working on right now, which would be bipartisan, should get bipartisan support. That's going to make it so much harder for the other side to introduce legislation, because every legislation is going to be very partisan. It's going to be, we're coming for your semi-automatic rifles, where we want you to have a background check to buy ammunition. It's going to be very partisan. They're only going to get a certain amount of bandwidth, a certain amount of support. You're going to have us rallied up, engaged, active, just bombarding them with emails and campaigns. If we have stuff that we introduce because we know what we're talking about and we write this legislation, that's how we suck the oxygen out of that room, out of that marble building. And so that's something that I did back in 2019. There was my bill, and there's 37 anti-gun bills that year. And I think we got one bill that year, but everything else died because we sucked the oxygen out with a gun safety bill. And so that's something to think about. And so I like this one. I like this one. And I have a question for you. Okay. So I'm a hardliner. I get it. I understand it, but what has being a hardliner done to prevent any of this legislation from going into effect? Okay. I understand the position, but my question is for you is, how were you able to take that position and then turn it into action? Okay. That's where I want you kind of understand. I want the kind of light bulb to go on, like, hey, okay, we can have this position, but how does that position actually win in Oregon? But also, how does that take back rights? Okay, because you think about it, every law that they pass is an infringement. Okay, we know that. Okay, so how, with this hardline stance, how do we get them to understand that hardline stance, and how do we get that hardline stance to actually win? I don't believe, like, I think we're going to be more effective by obviously having that hardline there, but also being in a position where we can kind of maneuver, and that's what we did. And so um that's a good one comment right here. So thank you, General. Absolutely. I mean, there's totally, we could totally do that. I think, and there's a good enough time that, once we understand what the Supreme Court rules, because we might not have to. If the Supreme Court says, no, this thing is unconstitutional, like you and I believe, um, this thing just goes away. And that January 1st, 2028 is a date that is just going to go away because this is unconstitutional, right? And so that's something to think about. I think where, we have some time. We ultimately, our kind of our next milestone, I would imagine, would be the Oregon State Supreme Court. So if we know what their feeling is on this thing, and I think that that's where we're gonna kind of know what the future lays for us. Obviously, if it does go into effect, we're gonna have time, right? We're gonna, if it is ruled constitutional, we're gonna have time, and that's gonna put it on us to write the legislation that we need to fix it, right? So this does give us time, and we're going to be able to make changes, and that's where there's so many people up there, even on both sides, that know this is a bad law, that they really want to fix it. The problem is they're not involving the right people that want it when it comes to fixing it. They should be involving us, right? The gun owners, the people that know what it's like to carry a gun. And so, that's something that we should all be aware of, is for this thing to truly be workable and fixed the way we want it. We're going to have to be a part of it. All right. There should be a carve out for a CHL. I mean, obviously I'm not advocating that, looks like you lost me. So camera died. So sorry about that. I got to go, but we will touch base soon. So my camera, I guess, just died. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you.